today's meeting was to catch up with the Indian Kamishibai Association team and anybody else around the world interested in Kamishibai. I guess Andrea is joining us. Yeah, maybe Andrea, you could introduce us later. I could give that space for you. So that was the main agenda, is to catch up, discuss our work in progress, and any questions, any doubts that we have. Also, I had requested Walter if he could speak to us about his journey and about Kamishibai, just to inspire us. And another two things that was in pipeline was to have some kind of a festival that we could plan for the Indian Kamishibai Association sometime in July. So we could plan storytelling, we could plan workshops. So that was one. The other is an artist who does Chitrakati in India. So I had connected with him, and we were planning to do, if we could do a joint workshop, which is Kamishibai and Chitrakati, where he would bring in a lot of inputs about Chitrakati, which Chitra means picture, Kati means storytelling. And this is something that I presented in my workshop also, where it is very similar to Kamishibai, where there is pictures and there is singing and storytelling that happens. So we were thinking if we could do some kind of a joint workshop, some joint presentation, that would be interesting. So that's what it was here. And he had also said he would join me today, join the meeting, but he lives in a small village. So he said maybe the connectivity may be a concern. So if he joins, I'm sure that will be great. So I guess we'll head over to you, Walter. I'm recording this meeting. There are people who said they'll join, but some of them said they may be running late, but I don't want to hold you up for too long. So maybe we would love to hear from you, and then we could let you go. We don't want to hold you up too long Sunday morning.
That's fine with me. Would you like me to start now?
Yes, Walter. Thank you so much. Please start.
Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. As you may not know, some of you, that I've been a frequent visitor to India in the past. And it's particularly pleasing to me that India now has dipped its toe or more into Kamishibai. And I wish the Indian Kamishibai Association all the success in the world. And I think under Ramya's leadership, that's exactly what you're going to experience. And I'd say India is very, very fertile ground for Kamishibai. I've been asked to talk a little bit about my experience with Kamishibai, and I'll try to keep it at least interesting and not terribly verbose. And by the way, as questions occur to anyone, if you would like to interrupt me and ask a question, that would actually be quite welcome. At any rate, it was 13 years ago that I first encountered Kamishibai, or started doing it. I had encountered it before that. It was sort of accidentally on purpose. Veronica Murphy, my partner, and I had started a nonprofit theater company called Write Out Loud. That started in 2007 with actual activity. And we knew that we wanted to do something for young audiences. And we also knew that we did not want it to be the typical reading of a picture book, which the reader then turns around and shares the picture with the students or the children, whether it's a classroom or a library or elsewhere, because we thought, well, A, everybody does that, and B, it isn't really very good. Oftentimes the picture can't be seen properly by everybody, and so on. And we had no idea what that other way of telling stories might be. I wasn't prepared to stand up and start telling stories, just stand-up storyteller style. Had absolutely no background in that. I'm a stage actor. And so I started doing searches online for some period of time, just about every afternoon. And finally, one day, after I included the word Japan amongst my search terms, up came a little thumbnail of an older fellow, Asian man, wearing a funny hat, and his arm was draped around, guess what? A Kamishibai stage, butai. And it was open. The obvious picture of a picture story was visible, and it was perfectly clear what that was all about. Not all about, because I had figure it out, find out where to get one, and blah, 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 and learn the word Kamishibai, which I had never heard. And that's how I got started. And I've enjoyed the ride very, very much. And I think, and it has been under the roof, you might say, of this nonprofit theater company called Right Out Loud. And we quite quickly started getting bookings. Now, at schools, and then that led to libraries, and that is the mainstay of my Kamishibai practice today. You should know one thing: we differ from most Kamishibai storytellers by we don't charge the library or the school for coming and introducing Kamishibai to the children. Instead, as a nonprofit, we're supported by third parties, and that has been a very beneficial thing in the rather rapid growth of our Kamishibai activities, because we don't have to convince somebody to shell out money. And I recommend it to anybody who is of a mind to take that approach. Of course, it's not a simple matter to create and then run a nonprofit organization and attract funding, but we've managed to do that. And our Kamishibai activity is funded by sources as diverse as the local governments, even the state government in California, as well as, more importantly, I think, private individuals and foundations which are interested in Kamishibai. We even got a grant at one point from an institution that I didn't know existed called the California State Library to create 2 Kamishibai stories about the subject of the incarceration of Japanese Americans during the Second World War, which may or may not be a subject familiar to you, but it was one of the more grievous violations of civil rights in American history, but not without some mitigating factors, I suppose. Well, for sure, the Second World War had begun. There was a large population of Japanese American citizens, as well as non-citizens, living especially along the West Coast in the states of California and Oregon and Washington state, not DC, and other states. And well, to make a long story short, there was a lot of fear involved. And these people were actually taken into camps called relocation camps. And we created these 2 stories. One is about a young girl named Ayako. That's Ayako's story. And the other is about Bruce, a slightly older child. And the 2 are very different. Bruce is quite embittered, but Ayako is younger and more malleable and better adjusts more successfully. Anyway, we did that. And that's still a story that we tell at appropriate locations for appropriate audiences whenever we get the opportunity. Japanese Friendship Garden in San Diego, a beautiful 11-acre garden, all manicured in the Japanese style, has embraced Kamishibai. Of course, it's very Japanese, and we are the people who do it there a lot. And again, we don't charge money to the Japanese garden for giving us this exposure, and we derive a lot of benefit from it, because schools often are coming through the garden, as well as teachers and others. And the contacts we have made there for additional presentations outside the garden have been many. Anyway, for a long time, up through COVID and after, I was almost the only person doing it. In fact, the only person in the San Diego County, which is a county of some 3 million people. And it's a very, very large county. But now, in more recent, I would say the last 2 years, I really began expanding the number of people who were involved in the telling. And now we have a group called Right Out Loud's Kamishibai Players, which is a cast of, let us say, 12 storytellers. At the moment, it's 12, who are out at libraries and schools and elsewhere almost daily. On some mornings, we're doing 4 libraries at the same time. And my job has changed. I'm no longer just telling the stories. I'm continuing to do that almost as much as I had been, but I'm also trying to manage this cast of Well, I've always likened actors, of which I'm one, to cats, and trying to manage cats is not a simple task, but is well worth it because, well, I'm very biased. I think that actors adapt very quickly and very successfully to the telling of Kamishibai stories because so much that is needed to be an effective teller, um, actors understand immediately, instinctively. It hardly needs to be mentioned. They need to learn things, how to manipulate the cards, which is very important and enhances the storytelling, of course, a lot. And how to break away from the script as much as possible, as soon as possible, so that they're telling the stories they're telling, not reading. And so that's where we are today, 13 going on 14 years later. Of course, we've also collaborated with Donna Tamaki and Tara McGowan on the World Kamishibai Forum, and that has been a marvelous, eye-opening experience. And I really hope somebody over there who's listening has a question for me or a thought, because that in very, very brief form is the arc of my Kamishibai experience. Anybody have anything that you'd like to know?
Yes, Tara already has a question.
Yes, Tara.
Yeah, Walter. So I knew about your work very early on, and I don't know if you read it in my second book, but I actually write about you a little bit.
No, I didn't. Oh, I missed that.
And this was back in, well, so I was writing that probably not long after you started Write Out Loud, but I was looking for other people in America using Kamishibai. And I remember what was distinctive about the way you were using it at that time. You weren't calling it Kamishibai. Can you talk a little bit about how that evolved?
Well, in my
That would be
innocence,
interesting.
we thought Kamishibai was just too challenging a word for many Americans, and of course they wouldn't know what it meant. So we didn't use the word Kamishibai in a big way. We used storybox theater. But it rapidly became clear that for us to get attention, particularly online, the word Kamishibai was essential. And so now we call it Kamishibai Storybox Theater. And actually the evolution then became Storybox Theater hyphen Kamishibai. And then I realized that's ridiculous. Kamishibai Storybox Theater is what I'm now doing. And I don't know that we were totally incorrect, but I wish we had begun with Kamishibai right at the outset. But the reason we didn't was that we wanted people to understand what we were proposing. But so, you know, the very first story the very first time I was invited to a school back in 2010 was an elementary school very close to my house. And when I got there, we were in the library of the elementary school. And the librarian turned out to be Japanese American. And she corrected my pronunciation of Kamishibai. I can't remember, or Kamishibai. I can't remember how I mispronounced it, but she did fix that for me. And we were off to the races, that school. We've never done much in terms of promotion. I have a flyer that I hand out. It's a tiny little thing. Whenever I do a performance, as I did just yesterday, at a different library, I offer it to any of the people there. The children always want one, and maybe a fraction of those get into the hands of their parents. But all of the adults often take them, and then I ask them if they know of another library or a preschool or an elementary school teacher or any institution that might be interested, or any audience. And that is the sum total of my promotion for the program. But,
I think even about the cards, Tara had asked. Yeah, go ahead, Tara, you can.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think there has been a long evolution since my starting over 20 years ago and today in terms of awareness of the word. And I think Alan Say's book did a lot to make people more aware of Kamishibai. his book Kamishibai Man. Yeah, I had asked another question, and then I'll stop. I'm sure other people know them too, but wondering if your Kamishibai about the Japanese American incarceration and the concentration camps are available for purchase, or how are you? Are they?
They're not yet, and they would not be an easy sell. We made, in my opinion, now looking back, we made the mistake of making them too long and too wordy. I would love to redo the texts. And I mean, with all due respect to Rachel Van Warmer, who wrote them, they are wonderful stories, but they are written more in the manner of a short story than a Kamishibai. I would like to see them adapted yet again. We've never published them. There's nothing prohibiting us doing that, but there's so many pictures, and even the shorter one, there are, what, 25 pictures. And the longer one, 32, 33, something like that. So it could take, it's a full evening program to just tell both those stories back to back, especially if you put an intermission between them, as you probably should. They're online, they can be seen at Write Out Loud's website, which is, well, Write Out Loud, spelled all out, sd.com. And there, if you go to education on that button, and then you'll find Kamishibai beneath it. And that's where the videos are.
So what kind of audience do you tell that story to, Walter? And how's the reaction to a story like that, which you also say it's very long? So what's your experience when you tell that
story? We usually do only one or the other at a time. We've done them to high school classes at high schools, and Ayako's story is very suitable for middle schoolers, which in San Diego County generally means grades 6, 7, and 8. And the venue where we've told it most often is, unsurprisingly, the Japanese Friendship Garden, which, by the way, is housed or located inside a very lovely large park in San Diego called Balboa Park. But those facilities there are perfect, and the audience that they attract is perfect. And sometimes we have classes who visit the garden and come there to the Inamori Pavilion, and they will be presented one or the other of those two stories. We try very hard to only have a Japanese American actor or storyteller tell those stories. Because first of all, the characters are all Japanese, or almost all Japanese Americans. I suppose the guards at the incarceration camps are not. And that's what has worked for us. And we're still in the process. Something I really want to do is take them to the actual relocation camps that have been preserved now as parks. They are national monuments or whatever, some subset of the national park system. Not all of them, but some of them. And the nearest one is called Manzanar. And we haven't managed to do that yet. And something that we would do there would be record them on video if the park wanted to make them available in that manner on an ongoing basis. And I think we'll get that to happen, but it hasn't happened yet.
Okay, thank you. So I just I want to request anybody in the audience have any questions for Walter, and I think Andrea's new Veena. Yeah, Veena has a question. Yes, go ahead, Veena.
Nina?
Veena, you're muted.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had a similar question to Ramya as to what kind of audience, which you've already answered. And what is the difference between that audience, which is like American, Japanese American, or American Japanese, because they relate to those things? Or can can you also tell it to a totally American or a totally other country audience, and how would they relate to it, or what kind of feelings or what kind of cultural education or historical link that they would get?
Any audience of an appropriate age can certainly absorb and enjoy the stories. Both stories, Ayako and Bruce, are historical fiction. They're based on actual families from San Diego who were incarcerated during the Second World War. But the characters are not named after those actual people, and they are, in many cases, the activities or the events or amalgamations of things that happen to diverse people. And I think they're very good stories. And we were still relatively early in our evolution as Kamishibai makers. Particularly, our strength has been presenting Kamishibai, not making Kamishibai. But we gave it a try, but at any rate, any audience of appropriate age can enjoy them, and we do present them to any interested audience. We presented them at there's a town which happens to have a very large naval US Navy presence called Coronado, right across the bay from the city of San Diego. And there at their historical society, we presented Ayako's story. And the audience was A, all adult, and B, included Japanese Americans as well as non-Japanese Americans. And it led to a very interesting and not unemotional conversation after the story. So I think it's an interesting thing to be doing with it under the umbrella of Kamishibai, because it certainly takes it into some very serious subjects, and also as a piece of historical fiction. And we worked very hard for its historicity to be accurate. We collaborated on that with an organization called the Japanese American Cultural Society of San Diego, I think it is, JACCSD. And they were very, very helpful. They worked very, very hard, and they were very demanding. They wanted specific things to be precisely historically correct to their understanding. So I hope that answers your question, Nina.
Yes, thank you.
True. That is very true, because you need to be very precise and correct, especially if you're dealing with a story like that. Yes, Dr. Nina had a question. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Walter.
Hi, good
Tara.
morning. Good evening.
Good morning. How are you all doing? Lovely seeing you all
fine.
here.
Nice
And
to see you.
Andrea, Olga. Oh, wow. This is like family. Seema, Ramya. Feels so good. Anyway, we've actually I've become such a, Kamishibai has become such an integral part of me. So, it's stories, and we do anything and every program that we do, whether we like it or not, we just have Kamishibai coming from different countries, from different,
I hope
so-
you like it more than not.
Yes, and this time, by the time I could contact, Walter and Tara, and even before I realized what was happening, we had Kamishibai here, Kamishibai there, and Kamishibai everywhere. Anyway, with that, it is.
Glad to hear that.
Yes, it's such a pleasure. I just had an idea, Walter, because what you have is something very, very potent and something that people should know. And something that should be told. So I, being the secretary of the Indo-American Association here in India, I thought I would connect to the US consul here, and we could also talk to the Japanese consulate, and maybe we could have a program for the members of the Japanese consul and the American consulate, and we could do a story session for them.
Brilliant idea.
I will organize that for you in maybe, I need 1 week's time. This week I'll be busy. A week's time I need to take care of my mother. And once I get her treatment started, I would be able to do this. So I will, we'll definitely, because I need some time to go meet them and talk to them. Once I get that done, we can definitely do this. And it can be done under the umbrella. Yeah, it can be done under the umbrella of IKA. And it can be, we can definitely support.
Definitely involve IKA, absolutely.
Yes. And it'll be something which, all of us should learn, because, yeah, definitely right now, yes, maybe we could use a few people from Russia and Ukraine and, put them in also, so
Why not?
so people understand what actually happens. Yes.
Yes, yes. Well, if we want to center on the subject of the Japanese American incarceration, we need to include in that program more than the Kamishibai story itself. And I can help find other people, survivors of that activity, are no longer abundant, but they are here in San Diego. That would enrich that and lend an important authenticity. But I certainly support your idea, and knowing you, it'll happen.
We'll make it happen because you have all the, you have it, and I think we should just enable it. That's all. Just the connections.
Yes,
we will do that.
That's a marvelous idea. I really appreciate your thinking and doing of that. That would be just terrific.
Yeah.
Yes, Tara had something to say.
Kamishibai. Right. The Japanese consulates and also Japanese societies in the UK, I think, generally speaking, more than, but nevertheless, they're well aware of Kamishibai, and some of them are more involved with it than others. I haven't been able to get the San Diego, Tijuana, Mexico chapter, which is a joint international, binational chapter of the Japanese Society, Japanese America Society, to do it. But others are very much involved with Kamishibai. And there are even free downloadable Kamishibai stories from the Japan Society. It's a consulate in somewhere in the UK. So getting them, that institutions on that level involved in India makes nothing but sense to me.
And a lot of entrepreneurs from Japan are coming this week to Bangalore. And maybe I could, Seema and Ramya could, or Veena, anybody could just, meet up with them. Maybe I'd connect you so that we can maybe get them also on board. And because it would interest a lot of people. So let's see how it works. Yeah, we'll plan it out.
Sounds terrific. And I just noticed that it is 1 minute past 7 a.m. It's time for me to jump in the shower. Everybody, if you don't know, I'm a singer as well as an actor. I'm a baritone
at the
singer.
church.
And I have a church singing job every Sunday morning, to which I must not be late. So I'm going to sign off and say thank you very, very much, particularly Ramya, to you, but to all. And hope the rest of the meeting goes just swimmingly.
Thank you, Walter. Next time we will make sure we don't plan it on Sunday morning, so we could have more time from you also. So thank you so much, Walter. Thank you for being here and inspiring us. And looks like a lot more is going to come up from this this talk of yours. And I'm sure we'll keep you posted. We'll connect with you. I think Tara had a question. Was it for Walter, Tara, or we could discuss after he leaves?
I just wanted people to know, you may know the history, but it's also, I think, valuable because the Japanese Americans were able to get reparations finally from the American government. So I think their story is exemplary for people who have had the experience that they've had. Like if you're showing it to people in the Ukraine and other places where there is some kind of closure, I mean, not by any means totally acceptable, but some sort of acknowledgement of that history. So I thought that was important to mention.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you, Walter. Thank you, Walter. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Okay, I'm so sorry we just jumped into Walter's small talk because he had to leave. We didn't get to hear and welcome Andrea and Olga. So Andrea and Olga, welcome to this meeting, and I'm so happy that you have joined. Of course, welcome to all of you who are here. So Andrea, would you like to just introduce yourself to this group?
Yes, a pleasure. Hello, everyone. My name is Andrea Bernetti. I am from Argentina, and here is my atelier. I am my puppet, and my Kamishibai is
Oh wow!
I working with the children. I am teacher from theater. I working in my city with the Kamishibai and this technique storytelling every Monday. I go to the park in my city and I tell this history because for me it's very important with the kid. I introduce and I like the read book and hear history. Here in my city is I am the only one with a practice with a make this technique. I working with this technique. I have my story, Andrea, the youngster archery from the here, and yeah, with Kamishibai, and I have my my book.
She told this story on this,
I have-
turn to Turkey. This is what she told.
Yes, it's the same. I made this one and my book. Yeah, it's my first book, and here the book from Kamishibai. I explain here what I mean Kamishibai, but this here in my city the people the kid I don't know where is the significance from Kamishibai, and the people on the kid I like very excited. I like so much Kamishibai and his story. Yeah, and I have the only grade the only other book from my city from Argentina and participate to in the last festival from Turkey and India. You don't hold the drawing yourself. Yes, I made this one. I made this drawing and color too. But the in other sometime I looking in internet and the picture and make, but this one is make about myself. This.
Yeah, they're very nice. They're lovely.
Thank you so much. I practice archery. Practice. Here have this female horse I have.
Wow.
And in this book,
so you've
yes.
colored and laminated them, Andrea? They're a little glossy, as in.
Yes, I color. Yeah.
And the butai, how big is your butai? Because to me, the cards seem to be smaller. So it's you made the butai, or is it something that you've purchased? The Kamishibai butai. I'm just curious.
Yeah. Thank you. This butai is moment. Sorry. I my butai. Yeah. Yeah, it's small. I practice to transport you. This one I buy in internet, and it's practice when you go I have a bag in my bag, I go into my Kamishibai. Yeah, and I sorry, I forgot the part when I say. Sorry, my English is no perfect.
No problem. No problem. we take your time.
Not that great.
Yeah.
Ah,
The all participate and the big butai.
mm,
I have this smaller butai.
mm. Yeah, this looks like a smaller butai, more like an A4 size. Beautiful,
Yes.
very beautiful. I had never seen something like this. At least I have never come across those flaps. Yeah,
The
yeah, they're
keep
very
this
handy.
thing and for I no back. Sorry. I forget
Oh,
the word. The street performance stage were smaller like that. Yeah, I have a performance in the street in the park, and I have no bike. I have a chair and sorry. Hi, no, hi, sorry. Where I mean, here
mm-hmm.
uh, this one